The Last of Us is one of my favourite games of all time, so hopes for this show were quite high. And watching this show yesterday, I was just in awe. I genuinely felt like I was watching The Last of Us world, The Last of Us characters, Joel and Ellie, on the screen just now in the format of a TV series. I am just so pleasantly surprised and over the freaking moon at how faithful of an adaptation this was to the game. Everything from the production design to the set decoration to the costume design and the musical score and just also the writing and the characterization, it felt like The Last of Us. There wasn't a hint of studio or executive interference or meddling in this whatsoever. They took what made the game amazing and just adapted it to the TV series and thus made the TV version of it also amazing. Slow clap to Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey as Joel and Ellie. They were amazing. Do they look and sound exactly like Joel and Ellie? No, they do not. But they captured the essence of what make their characters amazing in the games, and that's all that matters. Bella Ramsey as Ellie especially, she was just, god damn, she was just so good, man. I attached to their characters and I loved and adored their growing bond and relationship almost as much as I loved and adored it in the game. And that's saying a lot. I also really loved how they included some of the more iconic dialogue and musical cues from the game in this show, because they could have easily have not bothered porting dialogue and music from the game to give the show its own identity and not have to borrow from the game, but that wasn't the case. They know full well that some of the dialogue and some of that music is so iconic and so synonymous with The Last of Us that, yeah, include it in the show because it's incredible and it'll get the waterworks going. And it absolutely did, of course it did. Some of the music cues that they put in there from the game just sent shivers down my spine. I'm so glad they kept the same composer from the games. There are some changes and alterations they've made from the game, like any other video game adaptation. The biggest changes I could see was that Sam is made deaf in the show, which didn't really bother me at all. In fact, the ending of that episode, yeah, that got some more works going. That was quite powerful. But the biggest change that I could detect from the game was the Bill character. In fact, episode 3 was pretty much all about Bill and Frank and their romantic relationship, which was kind of hinted at in the game, sort of. But as a result, Bill is like a completely different character. I mean, he's still kind of the paranoid dude with the traps around his town, but he's a much more sensitive soul in the show compared to the game. And that didn't bother me. It was a nice kind of sub-story amongst the world of The Last of Us, but only because the episode diverted away from Joel and Ellie. It makes it my least favourite episode. And in general, I do prefer the hardcore badass survivalist Bill in the game compared to the more sensitive survivalist Bill in the show. But it didn't bother me. It was still well done. And the new additions to the show that were not in the game didn't bother me either. Like Melanie Linsky's character in episode 4 and 5. She's the leader of the resistance in Kansas City. And that whole storyline there and other bits and pieces they add, it does a good job of fleshing the world out. So any new addition like that, they can just further add to the greatness of The Last of Us lore. Fine by me. I've seen some people complain that there wasn't enough infected in the series, and I do see what they say. All the infected stuff is pretty much in the first half of the show, and the last like 3 or 4 episodes, there's really no infected at all. And thinking about it, there's nowhere really in the last few episodes that I can think that they could have placed an infected scene without it feeling unnecessary. The story, the characters, the journey, it was all speaking for itself. And an additional infected scene in those last few episodes maybe could have amplified the dangers of the world just a little bit more, but I just don't think it was really needed all that much. Like a lot of people have said, The Last of Us Season 1 is one of the best video game adaptations of all time because of its faithfulness to the game, how the producers, the writers, just took what made the game great and translated it to the series. It looked like The Last of Us, it felt like The Last of Us, the emotion of The Last of Us hit almost just as much as it did in The Last of Us. This is what happens when you have writers and producers, and in the case of Neil Druckmann, the actual creator and co-director of the game itself, involved in the production and development of the adaptation. You just get the best possible adaptation of The Last of Us that we could have seen. The way I see it, when it comes to experiencing The Last of Us, you now have the version that you play and the version that you watch. And I think that's the best praise that any video game adaptation can receive. Cannot wait for season 2, cannot wait to see these actors back as these characters, cannot wait for the journey to continue. As a big Last of Us fan, I am just so freaking over the moon with this adaptation. God bless you HBO, God bless you Neil Druckmann, thank you very, very much.